Good morning and welcome to Inside Tennessee along with John North. I'm your moderator, John Becker, and with us this morning is a Knoxville icon, a graduate of Austin East, a graduate of Knoxville College, a military veteran, served in the Army. He also served as the first black Tennessee representative in the State House, also served on City Council, and he's only 29 years old. Bob Booker, we are so pleased to have you with us this morning. Thank you for being here.
Well, I'm honored to be here, but Austin East wasn't in existence when I graduated from high school. It was Austin High School.
Austin High School. Thank you for the correction. That's why you're here, to give us the history of this community.
History.
Exactly. Don Bosch, he's a Democrat, also runs his own law firm. Susan Richardson Williams, a Republican, runs her own PR firm. Good to have both of you with us.
Good morning.
We are starting Black History Month, and Mr. Booker, you're on because of your expertise just in Knoxville history. You have lived it, and I want to talk to you about then, now, and what's ahead for this community. But what was it like growing up in Knoxville for you in the 1950s?
Well, it was very interesting. Everything was segregated. I rode the back of the streetcar, the back of the bus. We had separate water fountains. We could go to Chilhowie Park one day a year on the 8th of August. Had to sit in the balcony of the Bijou because I couldn't go to the Tennessee, the Riviera. So it was strict segregation in my schools all the way from the first grade through high school.
Living like that, did it feel, what did it feel like to you knowing that you didn't necessarily know something different? Did you know there was possibility out there?
I'm not sure. I don't think that studied my growth in any way, because our teachers tried to protect us from it as far as they could. Even when we sang Stephen Collins Foster songs that had the N-word and darkies, they would always change the words to people. So we were protected from that. And I'm not really sure that I understood segregation until after I got out of the military.
And I want to fast forward to that because in Knoxville College, you helped lead some sit-ins downtown in Knoxville in the 60s. What was happening at that time? And take our viewers back to that era.
Well, serving in the military for 3 years, I was free for the first time in my life. I could go to any movie theater, any night spot, eat in any restaurant, stay in any hotel. And when I came back to Knoxville in the spring of 1957, I was back to square one. And then the students at A&T College in Greensboro, North Carolina started the sit-ins in 1960. And I was president of student government at Knoxville College. I said, I think we need to do that too. We need to open up downtown Knoxville. So we began demonstrating at lunch counters and movie theaters.
One of those was Woodruff's, is that correct?
Woodruff's, McClellan's, any five and dime you can think of in Knoxville, we were involved with.
Woodruff's was on Gay Street. I think that's the building. The business is gone.
It's a downtown
That's right.
brewery and grill where I eat quite regularly.
Well, how many sit-ins can you recall that were staged in 1960 here? Are we talking one, several? Do you remember?
You mean in the city?
The lunch counter, yeah.
Oh, it went on all the time from about 1960 until the colleges were desegregated in 1963 or thereabouts.
John Duncan was the mayor back then, if I remember correctly, and he actually was displeased with you at one point for taking part in those.
Well, it's interesting with Mayor Duncan because he was involved with the so-called negotiations with lunch counter operators that said the black community or the adults thought that negotiations would get the counters open. We as students didn't believe it. So the merchants were dragging their feet. And I decided to organize the students one morning after chapel to drive into downtown Knoxville, park and walk through every store that had a lunch counter. And when I got back to the campus, the president of the college said, Mayor Duncan wants to see you. And I got my little green Ford and drove down to the mayor's office, and he said, you know we're negotiating, but if you people come down here again, I'm going to put you all in jail. And I said, well, Mr. Mayor, that's your prerogative. If you want to let all the crooks and criminals out of your jail and fill it up with students, that's your prerogative. But my students have told me this is what we need to be doing. And that was the end of that. But there wasn't animosity between me and the mayor because the mayor sincerely wanted it resolved. He took me and another student to New York to talk with the presidents of those dime stores, but they refused to see us because they said if we see somebody from Knoxville, we got to talk to somebody from Augusta and Memphis and Atlanta and wherever, and we're not going to do that. So he, Kaz Walker, and George Dempster were in favor of liberalizing things in Knoxville, I'm happy to say. And that's why we didn't have dogs and fire hoses and billy clubs used on people during the demonstrations.
Were you ever arrested, Bob, during any?
Yes, I was.
I thought so.
My favorite picture of me is in the city jail, looking out the peep slot when the dean of men came to get me out of jail. And I told him I was there for a good cause and I'm not ready to get out of jail, and refused to go. But about 3 o'clock that morning, the president of Knoxville College came down and he said, well, I know you're in here for a good cause, but you do have classes this morning. And we knew what that meant. We'd be marked absent, so we decided to get out of jail.
And how many times were you arrested during this?
Just one
Just
time.
the one time?
There were 51 of us arrested in front of the Tennessee that night.
I remember that story. I've seen the old Sentinel or Journal photos from that night out in front of the Tennessee Theater, and it's commendable. We were talking off air that I grew up in an experience a little bit different, growing up inner city St. Louis, Ferguson, and it was a different time then. You have a year or two on me, but I'm curious, and I think we'd be remiss if we didn't sort of take this around to what was the culture of KPD and law enforcement towards the minority community, and how would you compare it to what we're seeing and hearing now nationwide? Of course, the tragedy in Memphis. You know, we go all the way. My family grew up blocks away from where Michael Brown's family was in Ferguson, and many years apart. But what's it like now?
I'm going to stop you there just for a second because we've got to take a quick break. But when we come back, you can answer that question. We've got to pay some bills on Inside Tennessee. We'll be right back.